Anyway, I shall begin by just chiming in on this Norway incident. What does seem to be the prevalent aspect to this story, especially in the alternative media, is how the mainstream media immediately began reporting on how this was a jihadist terror plot. And it was pretty much for definite that Al-Qaeda had, that they were behind this. And you have this predominant headline of Norway's 9/11 that a lot of news outlets ran with. Now, what this shows, it just shows how lazy our media has become. And how completely and utterly they toe the government line on most, if not all, of their reporting. And how the war on terror has had this blinkering effect on the mainstream media. Instead of waiting for the facts to come out and basing conclusions on actual evidence, what did the mainstream media outlets do? They assumed automatically that an explosion in a building was Al-Qaeda.
I'll talk a little bit about this Norway shooting. There's so many things going on with this. The police knew the gunman's name before arrest. A British news anchor questions how authorities were aware of his identity in advance. It has now emerged that police knew the name of the gunman before they even arrested him, a startling admission that prompted one of Britain's top news anchors to question how authorities were aware of the gunman's identity in advance. The British anchor, during his Channel 4 news broadcast on Friday evening, host Jon Snow asked, quote, why police knew the killer's name by the time they had arrived on the island, reported the Telegraph Live blog. He surrendered the moment police called his name 3 minutes after they arrived. What we don't know is how the police knew the terrorist's name before they arrested him, said Snow, who is recognized as one of Britain's most trusted news anchors and cannot be dismissed as a, quote, conspiracy theorist, as Paul Joseph Watson writes. Some have speculated that he may have had accomplices, although police disregarded eyewitness accounts of multiple shooters on the island. Yeah, let's forget about that. Despite the eyewitness accounts of multiple shooters, he admitted that he was merely one part of an organization that included at least 2 other cells who were planning future attacks. Quote, I believe that there were 2 people who were shooting, survivor Alexander Stavdal told Norwegian VG, while other eyewitnesses reported hearing gunshots from 2 different places on the island at the same time.
Thousands on secret council blacklists, personal details kept of residents who dare to complain. Nearly 9,000 people are on a database, and the data held includes phone numbers, car registrations, and even nicknames. Thousands of people involved in disagreements with council staff have had their personal details stored on secret blacklists. Scores of councils hold databases of undesirables, individuals who could potentially pose a threat to their staff. They hold the details of almost 9,000 people, but most have never been charged with or convicted of any crime. Personal information such as car registration numbers, telephone numbers, household pets, nicknames, and distinguishing features are listed on the databases. This is the council. This isn't the police. This isn't the government. This is your local council who you end up paying a lot of money to. With in the UK, we have to pay something called council tax, and council services are being cut back all the time. We've had the austerity cuts, but we're still paying the same amount and more money every year. It keeps going up and up and up, how much we have to pay for this, which is technically, I think, an illegal tax after looking into it even further. It's quite unbelievable, really, that we've got local authorities here in the UK that can basically do what they like.
Today we're going to be talking to Tom Secker. Tom is an independent researcher and documentary filmmaker. His film 7/7 Seeds of Deconstruction, which I've mentioned a few times on here, it came out last year about the same time as mine did. I wanted to ask you today, I don't really want to say the state of the 7/7 truth movement, because there are a lot of well-meaning people doing a lot of work, but there's also sort of a long track record of people being discredited and made to look quite foolish by the media, which I think is harming our credibility. So I was just kind of wondering what your take is on this whole Messiah syndrome that seems to be taking over 7/7 Truth.
You're absolutely right. It does give the mainstream media, the self-styled conspiracy debunkers, the David Aronoviches of this world, something to hit, a nice, easy target to aim at. And that is a problem. We have to wonder, I suppose, at what are their motives in this whole situation, because it doesn't literally and logically discredit what they're saying, but it does strategically discredit what they're saying, because, like you say, it gives the debunkers something very easy to aim at. So what's more important to these people, I suppose, is the question that perhaps we should be asking them. Is it the truth about 7/7, or is it having a platform on which you can stand around saying that you're the Messiah?
I wanted to talk about a couple of things that have been thrown around the internet. The first thing is, there's been a lot of talk recently about the truth movement and where it's actually going, and about, you know, how we're going to get more information out to the masses to make them aware. You know, we've got YouTube. You know, a lot of us use this. Is this the best forum? I don't know. I mean, I make YouTube videos, but we all know there are different levels, and people are at different levels, different times of their lives and what have you. Now, you know, I've said, we do need more protests. We do need more non-compliance. We do need more activism. You know, I think some of us have become lazy thinking that YouTube might be the answer, but I'm not sure. And to get these things rolling, I don't know how we're going to organise things. You know, the trouble I see is that there's an awful lot of infighting, and you know, are we ever really going to mount a serious challenge to topple the globalists if we continue all this infighting? I don't know. You know, I imagine that sometimes when the globalists see this, that, you know, they're laughing at us. It's exactly what they want. We've got enough like government trolls and bots now. You know, just bloody computer programs that have a go at you on your YouTube, send a horrible comment. You know, it puts you down. It really does. You know, when you put everything into it and you get these comments, it's not great. But, you know, we don't need real people arguing. We've got to try and, you know, come together.
What you need to do is live your truth, live your wisdom. And as you do that, what people will do is they'll be drawn to you to come listen to you. It's like I get a show. I can share anything I want on here. Freedom of speech. Love it. Okay? And you can come, you can make a decision. Do you want to believe what I'm saying or not? It's up to you. You can believe part of it. You can leave with nothing. You can make fun of me. I don't care. As long as you understand I'm really trying. And I'm being honest. Honesty doesn't go over well with people these days. It seems like everybody wants to cover up, put on a mask. Sad. Very sad fact. And I think that's some of the same. If you read this guy's manifesto, what you'll find is some of it makes sense. I read part of it to my mother. I didn't tell her what it was. But I was sitting there reading it to her, and she's like, oh, I agree. Oh, yes, I agree with that. And I was surprised how much. She said, well, what is that? Where are you getting this from? Can you send this to me? I said, yeah, this is a manifesto of the guy who bombed and shot all those people over there in Norway. And she was like, what? She couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Somebody who was basically agreeing with some of her philosophies was doing this. This is another reason to suspect that this is part of a mind war. This is another reason to question, could this be used as part of an agenda? And I say the word could, not are or is. Because could says that, first of all, it acknowledges that there's a famous person once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. You can go research that, find out who that was and what their philosophy was. But to never let a good crisis go to waste means to take anything that happens, like 9/11, whether or not it was an inside job, an outside job, it doesn't really matter. What matters is, was it something that they used to push a political agenda? We know that they did. So let's take this crisis and look at what political agenda could this be behind.
I did sort of have a little break over the weekend and disconnected from the internet completely. Just didn't look at it at all for at least 3 days. I think we all have to take a break from this stuff every now and then. Otherwise it does become a morass. Yes, as I always like to point out, Rabbit Hole Orientation Show is hopefully about putting across the perspective that if you allow yourself to get dragged down those tunnels and obsess over one bit of information or one detail, you miss the whole picture. You can't see the winding network of all those different tunnels linking together. Yes, I have to mention the terrible events in Norway. Already there's been a lot of articles and a lot of stuff put out onto the intertubes about either it is an inside job or it isn't an inside job. This just seems too much like a clearly lit rabbit hole, almost as an enticement. Could this whole situation have been false flag engineered as a major distraction, and also, of course, an enabling function of allowing more stringent laws and practices, leading us back towards the police states?
This ties into this whole fear agenda. There seems to be this boogeyman, either real or most of the times imagined, conjured up, lurking behind every corner, under every bed, in your dresser drawer, behind the doors, whatever. They have to have this enemy.
You know what? And this is the thing that everybody has to realize, from the people going through what they're going through over in Norway to, the average voting citizen, whether that be the United States, the UK. I don't care where you're at. This game is going on everywhere because the system that they're installing is a global one. There's a reason why, the 7/7 bombings in London and 9/11 look the same. They have the same markers. It's because it's the same group of scumbags plotting the operation. And that's exactly it. Fear. Oh my God, this guy is taking a picture of a subway train with his cell phone. See something, say something.
Right. That's what's going on here. This is insanity, it really is. This whole police state agenda, this globalism agenda, man, is just getting really, completely out of control.
Costs of British military operations in Afghanistan estimated at £18 billion. Official figures by Commons Defence Committee also estimate cost of Libyan no-fly zone and bombing at £260 million. So £18 billion for Afghanistan, £260 million for Libya, and of course these are official figures, so they're bound to be vastly underrated. This at a time when the British people are suffering from austerity. The National Health Service is suffering massive cuts. Another story came out today about that. NHS begins rationing operations. Hip replacements, cataract surgery and tonsil removal are among operations now being rationed in a bid to save the NHS money. Taxpayers' money, I would much rather be spent, on the NHS, helping ill people. But I don't want British people's tax money going towards funding this war machine whilst, old people with cataracts can't get their eyesight treated on the NHS.
It's been an interesting week. We have this raising of the debt ceiling hanging over our heads. They're telling us that if we don't raise this debt ceiling, then all hell's going to break loose. Our credit worthiness will go down. They'll reduce our rating, our credit rating, and nobody will have faith in us anymore, and it's just going to be a ripple effect that will result in increased interest rates, end of the world scenario is what we're being told, right? This whole thing with this debt ceiling, it's mostly theater. One of the main ways that they control us by keeping us in fear. Now, how bad it gets, most people think it's going to be very, very bad, like a depression, the biggest depression, and it may be. I don't know. All that makes sense to me is that this is unsustainable. We can't continue to borrow the way we do.